Hello and welcome to the RoRoShow. My name is Ro, hence the name RoRoShow. And who am I? It's a good question. I ask myself that question a little bit too much. I am a project manager by day. I have multiple interests like making music, photography, fitness, philosophy. It's quite varied, but I'm hoping to use this as a platform to meet new people, to hear their story, and hopefully inspire others. Today I interviewed a really good friend of mine. His name is Aaron, also known as Czar. He's a DJ, he's a music producer, and he also has an interest in meditation. And if those are things that you're interested in, I really hope that you will enjoy the show, because I definitely did. So make sure to follow me on the links below, make sure to follow him on the links below, and yeah, enjoy the show. I hope you stick around.
Very good.
Hello,
Cool.
and welcome to the RoRoShow. How does it feel to be the first guest on the show?
I feel honoured to be.
Really?
be first guest.
Cool.
Yeah. Thank you for asking me.
Yeah.
Much appreciated.
No, it's good. It's actually so good to see you, because it's been like forever, man. I don't know. Can you actually remember the last time I saw you? I don't actually remember when that was.
You came over to. Wait, no.
What, for mastering the album
No, I
that we
don't
made
think
together?
I don't know if it was mastering. I think it was after that. You came over. Do you remember you came over to ours and like we just randomly got Indian food? And we were just like.
Oh, was that the last time?
I think that might have been the last time, or I might have come to yours. No, I think I came to yours to record some drums. That's the last time I saw you.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, like last March or something. Or no, last February. I think that's the last time
Oh, wow.
I
That's
saw
pretty
you.
cool. So,
That's kind of crazy.
for the people that don't know you, because obviously I know you quite well, because I think we're friends. Well, I'd like to think we're friends. Don't know if you consider me a friend, but I definitely consider you a friend. But
Yeah, of course.
but yeah, no. If you were to describe yourself, or little in a sentence, who would you say you are? What do you do in your spare time? What would you say your personality is like? Who are you?
Cool.
Who are you,
Who
Aaron?
am I? Okay, well, yes, I'm Aaron. I produce music and I play drums and I also DJ. And on top of that, I work at an animal charity for people stressed for endangered species. I just like help to do some database stuff for them. And yeah, on top of that, what else I do? General human being, the usual stuff.
Yeah.
That human.
General human being. Yeah.
General human stuff. Yes.
It's good that you have to label yourself as a human being.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm alien.
and so how have you been coping, in the last year or so with lockdown? Have you been coping well? Are you working from home at the moment, I assume?
Yeah, I've been working from home since like March, like basically as soon as we got told to work from home. So I've just been working from home. Like I'm very lucky that I have a job where I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I've been coping. It's I think for most people it's like up and down. Some weeks are good, some weeks are not so good, and for me it's just more like feeling sometimes I lack a lot of motivation to do some things, and then other weeks I just want to do everything. So I'm just kind of flip-flopping between both states in some to some degree. And it's actually quite interesting. This morning I was reading an article about the article was basically titled like, if you're struggling during this lockdown at the moment, it's okay. A lot of people are too. And the article was basically talking about how, we've been exposed to like a lot of stress in the last year, like constantly, like just like if you're looking at the news all the time and you've got probably a lot of stuff going on in your life, it's just so much stress going on and our body's constantly being pumped full of like cortisol. And if this has been happening for almost a year, like it's no wonder that we're feeling like really drained at the moment, because in the UK we're in another lockdown. Things don't really feel that much different to when the first lockdown happened, so we've been exposed to this constant stress all the time, and it's probably having like, quite a detrimental effect on our bodies and stuff,
Oh,
but I mean I'm doing just trying to remain like have some perspective that like things aren't terrible in my immediate life, like I'm able to work from home, I'm still able to like make music and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm doing okay.
Yeah,
Doing okay.
and do you think there's an end in sight now, like with the vaccine that's being rolled out, or do you think there's still going to be something, still going to be lingering, still going to be an issue for another year or more?
I To me, like COVID will end when there's like no more restrictions. Like we don't have to socially distance, we don't have to wear masks outside. That's to me when COVID will like officially end. And I personally think we won't reach that point until like maybe mid 2022. Just to like slowly phase out, like just to be extra careful. Like fingers crossed if like the UK government actually handle it properly, which we can't really rely on at the moment. But vaccine wise, it seemed, I only look at like mainstream media sources. I don't like to expose myself to the news too much, just because I did during the first lockdown, and it takes so much of a toll on you.
Yeah.
So I only check it like once a day, and I just see a lot of statistics of like, we're vaccinating this amount of people, and it's good that they're vaccinated a lot, but I suppose time will tell to wait until people get the second doses of their jabs. Second doses of their vaccines, and then just seeing what happens there and then, right? I think it's a bit too early to tell.
Yeah, nobody knows.
Like label things as a success.
Exactly. Yeah.
But the media I suppose they have a job to sort of like install some sort of positive outset to be like, X amount of people getting vaccinated, and just have that little bit of hope, I suppose, to cling on to for people. So
yeah, I do feel a lot of people, when I speak to them, they don't trust the news as much as they used to. They think it's it's like a loudspeaker to what people need to hear, not necessarily actually giving what should be, what is the right thing to be given. It's almost like their spokes. Yeah. So do you think that, it leads to my next question, do you think there's a change in like the collective consciousness? Do you think that we're all sort of becoming a bit more woke, I guess, and sort of looking at the mainstream and saying actually this may not always be the right thing to follow all the time?
I think we're both, me, you, and our like close circle of friends and acquaintances and family, we're all quite broad thinking people. And I think it's quite easy to get wrapped up into that way of thinking and then assume that everyone else thinks the same way. Whereas in reality, there's a lot of people with a lot of different perspectives. Some maybe right, maybe not right. But I think the fact that we live like so close to London, we get caught in this like London bubble of you assume that your friends and family just think the same way as you do. Personally, I like to think there is like a change in like a collective consciousness sort of thing, like, because it certainly feels like it, right? I mean, we've been like our lives have been changed and for like the last almost year or so, and people have been calling it like the new normal and whatever. But it's definitely forced me to sort of slow down and take stock of what the things I was doing in my life beforehand, and like how now having more time to sort of sit with yourself and sort of reevaluate your life. And I can only hope that other people are doing the same thing. But just because you're being given that opportunity to do that doesn't necessarily mean it might be a good thing for people. Like, it's really, as I said earlier, it's easy to assume that what's good for you will probably be really good for other people, but you don't know. Like, everyone is in such different situations and stuff. Some people might just be waking up every day and the only thing they have to worry about is like, how are they going to be able to like make ends meet to get food on the table until the end of the day, and then repeat that the next day. They probably don't have time to like sit down and think about what's like, how could they change their lives for the better. So I think in some ways, just the mere fact that like we can sit here and have this conversation and you asking me that question, we're in really like privileged like parts of our like that we're able to do that and sit so it's a tough question to answer. Like, I just think it really depends on your situation, but one can only hope. But then again, if you take that from the approach of like social media, and if most people get their information and news sources from social media, then like I don't know, there's a whole can of worms.
Oh yeah,
Isn't
exactly,
it? Like,
exactly. And I think social media
yeah,
is so personalized as well, isn't it? The content that you are more likely to look at, they tend to, you know, uh,
yeah,
bombard you with all that kind of
yeah.
information as well. So it's almost you get stuck in your own echo chamber, isn't it? But
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's an echo
yeah.
chamber.
Mm.
So I don't know, who can say, man?
Exactly. That's something we don't know, and I guess it's very hard to answer. But I guess that leads on to my next question. Is there something that you find yourself doing less these days? Is there something you personally are doing less, in lockdown? Is there something that you
Yeah.
feel like, actually, I want to move away from that, and you have been doing that?
Yeah, social media. I've just not been using it as much.
Yeah. So when you say social media, do you mean Instagram? Is that your main source of social media?
all of them really. Before, when the first lockdown happened, and I found myself using Twitter a lot more to sort of like, when something happens and you just want to know if everyone else is thinking the same way that you are, you go to Twitter because everything comes in real time and you can search for like key phrases or hashtags. So I was using Twitter a lot. I was like using Reddit a lot. I decreased my Facebook use a fair amount because I kind of use Facebook more as a tool now if I want to like find out some information or ask for recommendations rather than just like endlessly scrolling. But Instagram was a big one, and over like Christmas, over the Christmas period, I just decided to delete all my social media off my phone and just not log in for like 2 weeks, and it was amazing. Like just
Really?
yeah, it was a relief, and it was also like I've now got so much time to like read, and it just makes you realize how much time you waste on social media. And it's kind of awkward because like I have to use social media to an extent to like promote whatever music stuff I'm working on, but I'm learning now to what the balance is of how I use it. So yeah, that's like the biggest thing of like doing, so to speak.
Yeah, sometimes when I use social media, I actually feel quite guilty because I'm quite into photography, and so I like taking pictures, as you know.
Yes.
And
but
so
you use Instagram in its purest form. Like that's what it was designed for, right? Like just to like share pictures, and you take amazing pictures and you share them. Like I feel like there's no pretense behind what you share. You're not like posting a picture and being like, yo, check out this thing that I've made, or I don't know, like
it's exclusively used for photography for me, but sometimes I feel guilty that I'm actually contributing to people using social media.
That's how I feel too. Like I just sorry.
It's exactly it's that I worry that actually, even though I'm just using it in its pure form and just actually enjoying taking pictures and sharing it with people, I'm contributing to people being addicted to this feed. And I what do you think about that? What do you think is the best strategy to to
I'm so conflicted, man. Like that's like one of the root like issues that I have with social media, is that like I don't want to contribute to other people getting addicted to this platform. But on the flip side, it's not my responsibility for how people use social media. So the way that I'm approaching this at the moment is that like if I need to post, like I'll just be as authentic and as honest as I possibly can, and try not to be I don't know, like I think it's quite easy to get caught into changing the way you type or the sort of like content you post to, instead of it being authentic, you're posting it so that you can just get attention. And I think that can be quite difficult to sort of manage, but that's kind of how I'm approaching it now, is that I'll just post like whenever I feel like it, and it has to be honest and authentic, and that way I kind of think that at least I'm not putting out anything like terrible into the world of social media, and I don't want to contribute to like people being addicted to it or whatever. But then again, as I said, it's not really my responsibility. But yeah, it's something I'm constantly thinking about and trying to figure out what is the best way to use it.
I think we're all struggling with that, really. It's like there's so much power that social media has, and it's so addictive. What do we do sort of counteract it. But I think it's interesting that you're saying about you getting more into reading, because books have been around for thousands of years, and it's incredible how that is such a, even in this day and age, we prefer to read books, and actually that is a pure form of getting information. It's pretty incredible. But I don't know, right at the beginning when you introduced yourself, I don't know if you mentioned that you studied neuroscience. You may have, I'm not sure.
Oh, no, I didn't.
But so
it feels like such a long time ago.
You're a different person at that time. You completely changed since then, or maybe you haven't. So yeah, I mean, neuroscience, to making music, that's pretty awesome actually. Something which is very scientific to something which is very creative. Why do you think you made that? Why did you make that change? You think that's just more authentic to who you are making music?
I mean, I just enjoyed both. Like, there's no real link between the two. I was when I was looking for courses to study at university, I think at the time, and this is going back like when we were at school, so
10 years.
Yeah, I think it's been ages. Yeah, I just if I can remember correctly, I just remember being like, I have a natural interest, I suppose, in like biology and psychology, and that hasn't gone away. I still am really interested in that sort of stuff. And I didn't want to pick a subject where I had to exclusively focus on one or the other, and neuroscience seemed to fit both in together. I chose that.
Do you still use that skill to a certain degree? Do you think that the knowledge that you gained, contributes to your life right now, even the creative process that you have? Do you think there's any?
Yeah, I think so. I think just because I chose neuroscience as like my field of study, that was just one like outlet for me to sort of explore that interest I've got. But I think now I've distilled that more into like my meditation practice, and like being interested in how like Buddhist philosophy and that sort of thing is similar to psychology in some degrees.
You're analyzing your mind and who you are as a person.
Yeah. And in terms of the creative process, I'm not sure about that. I mean, I feel like I'm always learning about. That's an avenue that I almost don't want to overanalyze too much, because I like the spontaneity of it.
Like getting in that flow state.
And it's weird. The creative process is a weird one. It almost feels like, I don't want to sound lame or like pretentious or anything, but sometimes it feels
not at all on the RoRoShow.
It's the RoRoShow. You're not like, if you're not lame or pretentious, you can come on.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
This is terrible tagline. No, I feel like the creative process is almost like sacred, for a lack of a better term. So sometimes it's like I don't even want to
analyze it,
overanalyze it, because I don't think that doesn't give me any value. Like, just doing it gives me the value. if that makes sense.
So just going back to the music that you do make. So you do DJing. You have your own Spotify. You're named Czar, right? Is it Czar? So
I
your
produce
DJ
music
name?
Czar, and DJ. Yeah,
and you do music production as well. So you offer that as work, and you're also a drummer.
Yes.
And you've been drumming in my band. Shout out, little and so would you say the creative process is different for all of them? I know you don't want to analyze it, but do you think that you get into a flow state? Is it like you don't want to?
I think that's the aim, right? Like when you're doing any sort of.
The only reason I say that is because with music production, I feel when I was working with you and we were doing the mixing and mastering for our latest album, there is a lot of sort of analytical aspect to it. You have to kind of break down the stems, understanding where they should fit in the mix. So I think the two can be linked, right? I mean, you can be doing any sort of. I think there should be a distinction between like the creative process and like being in a flow state. Like, I don't think the two are mutually exclusive.
They you can be in a flow state when doing something creative, but you can also be in a flow state when you're doing something analytical, right? Like I don't think it only subscribes to one way of doing something. So off of the back of that, yeah, I think it's the aim of like most artists, whatever medium that you're working in, that you want to get into that flow state, because that's when it feels effortless and it feels like you just feel like these ideas are coming to you and you kind of act as like a vessel for like pushing out these sorts of things. Like that's when it's like most almost like blissful, I suppose, and you're not thinking about it, you're just kind of doing it. But I think naturally you can't maintain that state all the time, so your brain's going to just sometimes come in and be like, you do have to analyze bits here and there. But if you're doing something like mixing, there is a lot of analytical work involved in that, and but you can get into a flow state when you're doing that. I've certainly experienced both of it, both experiences of that, and same with like drums as well. Like I just generally find that I play better when I'm not thinking.
Sure.
Like it almost feels like I don't come up with the parts come to me. If that makes any sense. It's almost like a role reversal of like how you think things work. Like I feel like the creative process is the opposite. Like you don't force it, it just happens.
Yeah, so it's interesting. So yeah, so you get into this, I guess, state where you're not even thinking, and you make this art, right? But do you still have inspirations then? Do you have things that have influenced you, and that I guess influences your output too?
Yeah, absolutely. I think everyone has that, right? It's just your influences are whatever information you just take in.
Yeah,
we're always taking in.
So who are your inspirations then?
It depends on the medium, I suppose.
Yeah, so I guess we'll split it into three. So with DJing, who's why did you get into DJing? What is your inspirations? Who are your inspirations? Should I say?
For DJing, it's what really got me into it was like artists like Fortet and Floating Points, and they kind of introduced me to this way of DJing where it's so genre free that it just opened my mind to it. I was pretty close-minded beforehand to it about like, DJing should just be like, it's just one type of music and you just do, X, Y, Z, and it just, the typical sort of like everything sounds the same. But I'm very thankful that I broke out of that way of thinking. And they just exposed me to...
How long have you been DJing for, sorry?
I started DJing like around 2017, but like, I wouldn't say I was any good. I'm still, I was focusing a lot on just like, thank you, like track selections and stuff like that. But there's been a long period of time where I just didn't practice, and I only recently actually got a pair of turntables and a mixer, so I can now practice at home. And I've actually been servicing the turntables. I had to take them apart because I bought them secondhand and one of them wasn't working properly. So I had to like look at the innards and learn about the circuit boards and that stuff. And I managed to get it working, so I'm like really happy about that. And I was actually doing a bit of practice before this chat. I was just doing a little bit of mixing at home.
Yeah, but before that, you were just using a MIDI controller. Is that right?
Yeah, like. I learned on
Ableton.
No, not on Ableton. I learned on like a DJ controller, which is like kind of like an all-in-one thing. So I would have like the tracks up on my laptop, and I could like drag and drop it into. I was using the Traktor S2, which was like a really cool piece of kit. It's good. Like it's good to learn on that. But now I've got like a proper pair of turntables, so I can like use the records I've got. And then towards the beginning of last year, I was getting a lot of practice in on CDJs, but then I haven't had any access to it since COVID, so I'll probably get back to that when I can. It was artists like Floating Points, Fortet, like Theo Parrish, that sort of stuff. Like, they would drop like electronic tunes or like UK garage and then like a jazz song or like a hip hop track, and it was just all over the shop in like a really cool coherent flow, and that really resonated with me because I'm into a lot of different styles of music. So yeah,
Yeah, it's really interesting. You're saying that you started kind of DJing around 2017. Is because before that you were quite into rock music. You were you played drums since you were, I don't know how, 10 years old maybe. Was it 10 years old? I should probably know this, shouldn't
I've
I?
been playing since I was like 12, I think. So
12.
yeah,
So yeah, and I
yeah,
remember you were really into the Foo Fighters. You were really into kind of indie rock as well. I think
yeah, yeah.
I can't remember all of
Phases,
them.
isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and and
yeah,
and, and now it's complete well, I guess it's not complete transition, but it's very different to what you were listening to. I think you were into
yeah.
Muse. Are you still?
Oh
Do you still
man,
listen to them as well?
teenage days. I haven't listened to them in years, man.
Yeah.
Like, um, I've kept all my old CDs that like I used to collect from when I was a teenager, and it's just like a looking at a little window into like your like past, right? Just being like, oh my god, I just remember listening to all this stuff and being obsessed with it. It's like that teenage obsession. But you know, as you grow older, your
Constantly changing.
yeah, yeah, and your interests change and stuff. So you know that stuff is it's still there. I'll probably listen to it at some point and be like, oh, trips down memory lane. You know,
Yeah,
it's
for
all
sure.
it's all like linked to memories or like formative experiences, right? So but yeah, I still like that stuff, and I'm just more into like discovering new things at the moment rather than
Yeah.
going back to the old. But it goes in phases. Like in a month, I might just be like really sentimental and just listening to old stuff.
It might be. I mean, they do say that in your 20s and 30s, when you're younger, you're obviously really into certain kind of music, and it sticks with you. You kind of always
Yeah,
want to go
yeah.
back to that. So maybe there is a sort of a point where you just want to go back to what you were listening to before. But
Well, I do remember when I like left uni, I was really like seeking out to discover new styles of music and stuff like that. Because I was a bit like, man, there's just so much out there. Like I just want to listen to as much as possible. So
yeah,
yeah,
I think this is, you have a very like I guess a free spirit type energy. Like you just want to explore and learn different things and try different things. I think that's really cool. But that is going to lead me on to talking about meditation and Vipassana.
okay.
But before I do that, I just wanted to focus on one thing because
Yeah.
I remember you actually did an article on, and I don't know, you probably released it on all your social media channels about music and Spotify, and actually the fact that it's very difficult to make money using
Yeah.
those types of mediums. So I just wanted to get your take on that, really. So do you still believe that? Do you still believe that actually streaming services like Spotify and I assume like Amazon as well, it's just very difficult to make money on it? And is there better ways to make money making music? Do you think do you think with COVID as well, things have changed as well, and how people make music? People make music and make money from music.
Yeah. Well, I don't think it's any secret that it's a lot more difficult. No, let me rephrase that. That like piece I wrote about like my streaming stats and whatever, it just highlighted the fact that artists don't get paid enough in the streaming model side of things. And being in a pandemic, I think live music was taken away from a lot of artists, which is a lot of artists' main source of income. And if they were having to rely on streaming royalties, like that's obviously not enough to support them. I just feel like Spotify has like some amazing upsides and some amazing downsides. Like I don't feel like it's a very balanced platform. Like streaming, sorry, not Spotify, but let's say like streaming as a whole, as a concept, is
That's a financial model.
yeah, it's very on the opposite ends of the extremes of like it has some amazing stuff and some really bad stuff, and the amazing things being like you have access to almost all the music that's ever been recorded ever, and at the hands of your fingertips, and you can listen to it instantly. Like that is incredible. That's such a technological advancement. You have algorithms recommending you music based on what you're into. Like again, that's like really cool. But the downside is that to maintain such an affordable model, the artists who actually contribute the content to the streaming services don't get paid much. And if you listen back to, sorry, if you do some research back into like how old record labels used to work, it's kind of, I wouldn't say it's the same story, but it's like you always hear these stories about like artists being like the last rung in the ladder to like get money. It's always like the last one, even though they're the one contributing the work, and yeah, everyone else wouldn't have a job without that artist. Like it's just kind of the same things happening again, right? So, but the fact that we're being exposed to the stats of it this time, it just really makes it evident, and that we have social media and people are able to share these stats so freely. I think it just it's made the conversation louder than it was before. That like, you know, hey, it's not exactly fair that this is happening. I actually watched this really cool video on YouTube about like this. I can't remember. This electronic music producer, but he also has like a YouTube channel, and he was discussing like Spotify streaming and what his take on it was. I'll send you a link to it if you want to like put it in the description, because it's actually really interesting, like the way he put it. He was an artist that had a lot of we call it like the old music industry. He had a lot of releases pre-streaming, and when Spotify was in like its beta stage, he signed up as an artist and put his entire discography on there. Now, because he had like an old fan base that had switched over to Spotify, he made a fair amount of money off of royalties, because he kind of caught that sweet spot where he wasn't a new artist. He already had like a fair amount of music released. He put it up on Spotify, and then he made a lot of money off of it. But he calculated that if he was to take away, he basically calculated that like he was making an annual income based off of royalties alone of about $22,000, because he was American. It was like $22,000 to $25,000. But because he was American, he was like, that doesn't include things like, you know, a health insurance package or like a dental insurance package, or, you know, those sort of things like that. And he basically compared his job to like the amount of hours he works for the amount of money he gets, and without any sort of like, you know, health insurance incentives, that sort of thing, he could get a job as like a parking lot attendant on the same money, and he would have like a way better work-life balance, because he'd only work like 9 to 5 or whatever. He would probably get some sort of like health and dental insurance package. And when he put it down that way, he was like, yes, I can make a living off of streaming. However, like at what cost? Like it sacrifices his time, his health, and the fact that he doesn't actually have like very good like insurance incentives. So when he put it that way, he was like, why should I could just like quit making music and get a job as a parking lot attendant and probably have a better quality of life. And when he put it that way, I was like, you know, even it's all context dependent, I suppose. It's sorry, that was a bit of a tangent, I just thought it was interesting, sort of like compare
really it. It's very interesting,
because a lot of people just think about like, oh, you just like get a lump sum of money from like royalties, and it's like, yeah, you do, but like in context of like how much effort you put into
it's time versus return, isn't it? It really is time versus return.
Yeah, but you know,
also expenses.
But artists won't like complain much about that, because obviously, like, we love making music so much that like, if we could, we'd do it for free. If we could live in a society where we didn't have to make money off of it, like we'd probably just do that all the time, and like it would be fine. But yeah, it was just quite interesting, and it doesn't help when like Daniel Elk, the is that his name, Daniel Elk, the CEO of Spotify?
I think so.
Yeah, he, you know,
I'm double checking.
Yeah, it doesn't help when he says things like to like musicians that like you need to release like more music more often to like keep up with the pace and make more money. And it's just like, I don't think he realizes just how much time and effort goes into like putting out one thing. Like, and if he wants us to keep on uploading like things every month, like that is a complete sacrifice and almost undoable in like how much time you have and maintaining like a healthy work-life balance. It was just a bit inflammatory to say that, especially during a pandemic when a lot of like artists' income has like been slashed dramatically because they're not touring anymore. It was just a bit. It just seems a bit out of touch, and it's obviously really easy for him to say that because like he's the CEO of this like multi-million dollar company. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a tricky one.
it's a very tricky one. But do you think there is a lot of musicians that are waking up, to the fact that a lot of these corporations are taking advantage of them? And do you think that there's going to be change in the future? Are there better models out there that you think could work?
Again, I think with like social media and stuff, it's but more people are getting clued up into like the ways of doing things. If you're an artist, you will have social media, and then if you see in your network that the similar things are happening, I think it's an accepted reality. And I actually had someone get in touch with me on Instagram off of the back of that post I put up.
Oh, yeah.
And he basically, yeah, he was studying at university, and he actually asked me like if he had to write an essay about like basically the pros and cons of streaming, and he found found the post I put up, and he basically asked me some questions, and like because he wanted to have my input as part of his essay. So it's obviously being taught at university, so it's definitely something that is like being made. There's a lot more awareness. There's a lot more awareness around it, because that is basically how the music industry works now, right? So yeah, I'd like to think that there is a lot more awareness around it. And in terms of different ways of working, like alternatives, I have heard of this streaming service called Resonate, and it's kind of like they explain how their like pricing works and how they pay artists. And I got a little bit confused when I was reading it. I need to read it again. But I've heard like many people recommend Resonate as a sort of like alternative to Spotify, like a more ethical way of streaming, that where the artists get more fairly, what's the word? They just get more fairly paid for their work.
Yeah.
And also there's like the absolute GOAT is Bandcamp. So if you want to support an independent artist, or even like anyone who's signed to a label, if they have a Bandcamp page, like go to Bandcamp and buy their music or buy their merch, because Bandcamp take a very small fee, but most of that money goes straight to the artist. Like put it this way: if I uploaded a single onto Spotify, and I get 1,000 plays off of that single, I would probably get paid maybe out of whatever 0.0003 times 1,000 is.
Right.
I don't know.
A small amount.
A very small amount. But if I put up that same single on Bandcamp and it got bought 1,000 times, and the best thing about Bandcamp is that like you can name your price. Like people can decide to just download it for free, or they can pay however much they want. Like I'll probably make more money off of Bandcamp than I would on Spotify. But Spotify has like a better user interface in terms of sharing music and it being more of like a social experience, I suppose. Bandcamp is not so much that, but I reckon, I saw recently they were hiring a UI and UX designer, so I reckon they're gonna move towards that a bit more, because especially during the pandemic and like with Bandcamp Fridays, where they waived their fees, and artists would get all of the money that was. Yeah, all the money that was bought from their, if anyone bought their music, they would get all the money basically. I think it's just like made artists a lot more aware of like, Bandcamp definitely they're onto something, and they have been for a long time.
Okay. So what would you say to that person out there that wants to make music, that is very creative, but is very fearful to move out of their 9-to-5 roles? You're not selling being an artist, as in it sounds like it's very, very difficult to make money and use it as a full-time income. So
yeah, it definitely is. I mean, I can't do that at the moment, but it's something. And what would I say to like someone who wants to do that? I mean, if you want to make music, like it goes beyond sort of like making a decision between like, oh, should I work or should I make music? Like it goes beyond that. Like you have to do it. Like I have to make stuff to keep my sanity. Like it's like
a way of life.
Yeah, and you'll make it work. Like if it's that important to you, like you'll make it work. Like you do anything you can to like be able to keep on creating, right?
It's almost like you're treating like it's a natural essence of being a human being making music, and it's something that it's
Yeah, it's a really nice way of putting it. Yeah. I just don't think it's like, you can do both. You can work 9 to 5 and still make music. We just live in a current, I suppose, like economic climate where it's, yeah, as you said, extremely difficult to make money off of just doing music alone. But it's not impossible. You can do it. But I think, you know, how you hear stories of like artists in the past in the old music industry being able to do that, it's not as easy to do that anymore. So I think you have to put a lot more work and effort into it now. But, you know, the trade-off is that artists in general now have way more creative freedom over what they can do and what they can put out. They don't have to answer to labels, which, you know, used to dictate the image or like, you know, that sort of thing. So there's a trade-off. There's a big trade-off, and I don't think many people are aware of that, especially like younger artists and whatnot.
A lot more control, a lot more liberty, and I guess that also means there's very different types of art out there that you can listen to, right? Different types of music sources. Cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, that was really engaging, and thank you. I was sorry, I was quite lost for you. I was looking at the time, and I was like, oh my god. I was actually really, really interested, because I struggle with that too sometimes, because I work, quite a corporate job.
Yeah.
But it'd be nice to make music, and I guess sometimes you think that actually performing is a good way of making money, but with COVID, that's a very difficult thing to do as well. So the only you're completely restricted in terms of revenue sources, in terms of making money, and it costs money as well to make good music. Sometimes you've got to hire people and session musicians, etc.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, it's difficult at the moment. It's a grind, but you know, at the end of the day, it's like I wouldn't really have it any other way. All you can do is just going back to what you said before. I just thought of like an extra thing about like if you're working a 9 to 5 and you want to make a career out of making music, that sort of thing. Like if you're doing music just for the money, then
it's a trade-off. It takes out.
Yeah,
it takes out
like it won't
art.
Like if you're going into it just to make money, then like, you know, fair enough, that's your choice. But you're probably not going to be able to for a long time. But if you're making music just because like you want to express yourself and whatever, then obviously you're just going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But sometimes I do think that these 9 to 5 roles, they suck the energy out of you, and so that you don't necessarily have the energy to make music, which can be quite difficult. So I guess it depends on what role you have, right?
Yeah. Well, there's a great book I've read, and it's on my shelf, and I'm just trying to get the proper title of it so that it's called How to Make It in the DIY Music Business by Ari Herstand. Mm-hmm. So good. Like if you're an independent, there's just so much information and so much knowledge and like advice on every aspect of like your music journey as an artist, like in terms of PR, how to book gigs, how to do everything. And like he himself is a DIY musician who's managed to make a full-time living off of doing it. I'd recommend that book for anyone. It's helped me out so much.
Yeah,
so,
for sure. Yeah, I'll definitely link it in the bio.
Yeah.
So this is leading on to the kind of last chapter. I really want to discuss with you your meditation practice. I know you practice Vipassana type meditation, insight meditation. I just wanted to learn. I know about it, but I wanted to learn more about it from you, and see how you're going with that. What is your practice changed, or is it still the same? Do you sit down every day in the morning and sort of analyze yourself?
So I did my last Vipassana course in October last year. I was like thankfully managed to like get on one, even though like COVID was happening.
And that was your second Vipassana retreat, right?
That was my third.
Okay.
And
you had before that, a couple of years before that, or?
No, I did the one before that in 2019. And then my first one I did was in 2015.
Okay.
But since I got back from my latest one, I've meditated an hour every day since. And I know that doesn't sound like much, but it's done a world of good. So I usually do it in the morning. Sometimes I'll do it in the afternoon. But I've made a sort of like promise to myself that I have to basically meditate for an hour every day. And
Yeah, and briefly,
yeah,
Vipassana meditation is kind of, I guess, analyzing yourself, right? You sort of, could you describe the practice a little bit more? As in, what do you
sure.
actually do?
Well, it's kind of a bizarre technique of meditation. Like, a lot of people assume meditation is like just focusing on your breath and that sort of thing, or like chanting Om or whatever. But this is more like you sit down and you observe the sensations that are happening on your body. So like you start at your head, and then you move down, feel your face, like, you know, around the back of your head, then down your chest and your arms, and then you go down, then you go back up again. So I do that every day for an hour. And the whole point of Vipassana is to sort of, you'll feel a lot of different kinds of sensations. Like you might feel pain in your shoulders, or like tingling on your arms, and it would be changing all the time. And even if it's like a really nice, pleasant sensation, or a really, unpleasant sensation, you're training yourself to sort of not react to those. So like if I feel pain, I'm not like sitting here just going, oh, it's really painful, I just want it to go away. You just sort of just observe the sensation of it, to like remove yourself from what it is. And you will find that like it changes, like it goes away eventually, and it will be replaced with something else, and then that will change. And it's just like learning to sort of accept that there's change always happening on your body, and to not get like so caught up in like trying to get rid of whatever, like trying to get rid of a sensation, or like craving a sensation, or like having a negative reaction to a sensation. You're just remaining really like balanced and equanimous as you're experiencing these different types of sensations.
Yeah.
And
So you
that's basically what Vipassana is.
okay. So you sense something within your body, and then you sort of let it go. And so that's quite interesting. You do that every day for an hour.
Yeah.
And do you think that's had an impact into your life, or do you think it has? Is it very subtle? It's something that you just do and you don't actually think about it. There's no goal to it. You just actually, use it as a daily routine.
Well, it's become part of my daily routine now. It's definitely helped me maintain a more like stable like mood most of the time. If I find myself getting like annoyed or upset or irritated at something, it doesn't last as long. I don't get caught up in these stories that like your mind makes up about why X, Y, and Z is happening. It just sort of like, what's interesting about Vipassana is that when you feel yourself getting angry, or like an unpleasant feeling, there's usually an unpleasant sensation on your body as well. And what causes like a lot of suffering is the fact that you're trying to get rid of that unpleasant sensation. You're going, oh, I just feel good now, but I can't. So usually if I feel angry or irritated, I usually it's becoming more spontaneous now because I'm practicing every day, but I'll like feel the sensation. I'll quickly scan my body, and like I'll be able to find like, oh, like I've got some random pain in my like arm, or like I've got like an ache in my ankle or something, and I'll just observe that. And then when that sensation goes away, generally that emotion will go away too. So it's not reacting to the sensations on your body and the emotions you're feeling, you're responding to them. So just keeping a balanced mind, and then that's how it's helped a lot in that sense.
You become more mindful in the day, so it becomes a practice within your day, not necessarily on the cushion.
Well, it's both. I mean, the cushion is just sort of like an isolated hour of time where I'm just doing that. But then throughout the day, I try to remain as mindful as possible. Some days I'm really good at it. Some days I'm just not. It's a practice. That's I'm not trying to get like really good at meditation. That's not the point. It's just a practice that I'm doing every day. Just it's like running. You're just taking care of your brain.
Yeah, it's really interesting you say that. There are some parallels with meditation and like doing weights in the gym. It does sometimes feel like that, because you go into the gym and you lift weights, and that's you dedicate an hour to do that. I guess sometimes you can consider meditation to be the same, where you dedicate some time in the day without really thinking about the goal. You just do it. I mean, I don't sometimes go to the gym and think tomorrow I'm going to be able to lift 3 more kgs. But maybe I should. I don't know. Maybe that'll be more effective. But yeah, no, it's very interesting. So, is there any books that you would recommend, or something that has really impacted you recently that you could recommend me, actually, because I would like to learn more about that.
What about specifically about meditation?
Yeah, well, 2
or
things.
Just
Yeah,
books
so
in general?
one about meditation, in particular Vipassana meditation, and secondly, just any book that you have read that's really impacted you, because I feel like I haven't spoken to you in a long time, so maybe this would be a good insight into how you're thinking.
What's going on? Yeah. I don't have any books to recommend about Vipassana specifically, because there's just I learned everything I've learned about Vipassana through going on the 10-day courses. So I'd probably suggest, like, if you want to learn more about that, like, go to their website, which is dhamma.org. So it's spelled DHAMMA.org. I believe that's right. I'll put it in the description box up there.
Sure,
but if you like that basically has all the information you need to know about, like, the practice and what's involved in going on these, like, 10-day silent retreats. So yeah. But then, what have I been reading at the moment? I actually finished reading The Good Immigrant recently, which was a really, really cool book. It's like a collection of short essays from basically, people who are like children of immigrants, or immigrants themselves, and how they've experienced living in the UK and that sort of thing. And it's people like Riz Ahmed and Himesh Patel. There's just generally like artists or authors. As a journalist as well. And it was a really cool insight into just how people have experienced growing up in the UK as like an ethnic minority, and like the challenges that they have faced. And it goes into a bit about, Britain's not so glamorous colonial past and all that stuff. It's quite, it was very eye-opening, and I resonated with a lot of stories, as we are both kids of the diaspora and all that. So it's a very great book. I recommend anyone read it, to be honest. It's just fantastic. And I'm also reading at the moment this book called Bedrooms, Beats and B-Sides, by Lauren Fintoni. And it's just like about how the bedroom producer has become like that outright has become like an artist in itself, and like how that has happened throughout the history of like music. So talking about how trip hop started in the UK, and then things like IDM and the rise of like Warp Records and Mo Wax Records and Ninja Tune, and then it's going over into like beat culture in the US. So about like Madlib and Dilla, how that sort of thing is so cool. I'm just learning about so many new artists and like scenes that were happening in the US and like even in the UK that I had no idea what was going on, and like how they're all interlinked in between each other. It's such a fascinating book. If you're interested in like hip hop or electronic music and beat culture or like producing, like I can't recommend this book enough. It's so good. Like it's just amazing.
Oh, amazing! Yeah, send me if you could provide the link or the details. I will make sure to add that in the.
I have a lot of links to send over.
Absolutely. So that leads me on to my I guess last question, and that is, what is one piece of advice that you would give your younger self? So I feel like you've changed so much. Honestly, I mean, in a good way. Like you're still you, but you've actually diversified and got into so many different things. But what's one piece of advice that you would give your younger self? It's a hard question.
That was a very difficult question. Don't worry so much. Yeah, that would probably be it. Don't worry so much. I mean, that's the first thing that like came into my head, because I remember as a teenager, like I'm very I think I place, like, personality-wise, I kind of place a bit more, like, on the maybe a bit too much energy, like, I can be overanalyze and overthink and be a bit more anxious about stuff. So I'd probably say that, yeah, just like don't worry so much and learn how to meditate. but I do remember when I was like 18, like first year of uni, and I was just like sitting in my dorm room, and I was like, I'm just gonna like just Googled how to meditate. Like, I had no idea how to do any of that sort of stuff, and found some like some like WikiHow instructions or something on like how to meditate or whatever. And just remember it's like sitting, and I got to like a minute in, and I was like, I can't do this. This is so boring.
Yeah, it's so.
Now,
It's
I just
very
it's funny
interesting.
if like 18-year-old me could look at like, I'm 28 now, like 28-year-old me, and just be like, yo, you can like sit for an hour a day to meditate. That's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, that is amazing. It's actually really interesting how when we're younger, we do somehow flick through some things that we'll be interested in, or we are interested in, but we don't really recognize it. We don't really know that we're interested in it till we actually get really into it.
That's a good point. Yeah.
It's very interesting. Something like,
Cool.
yeah. So no, anyway, look, Aaron, or Zar, it was very great talking to you, and it was good catching up with you. Again, it's been too long. We should definitely do this more often.
Yeah.
But how do you enjoy being on the RoRoShow?
Very enjoyable. I'd
Very-
happily come back on again if you'd have me.
You'll be my only guest. Nobody else. No. I'm. Yeah, that'll be most welcome. That'll be really good. No, it's always fun hanging out and talking to you. So take care.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Send me those links.
Yeah, I will if I remember what it is. But okay, bye.
Have a good day. Thank you so much for listening to the show. I really hope you enjoyed it. I definitely did. Make sure to follow him on Twitter, Instagram at AJDZar. I will provide his link tree below so you can listen to his music and explore the wonderful things that he's created. He's a really good guy. He's a great friend of mine, and I always love talking to him. And I hopefully you would want to be on the show again. So we'll try and get him back on. But thank you so much for sticking around. Take care. Be safe.